You can feel it in the air. That heavy silence before the storm breaks. It was supposed to be my day. The one where everything finally fell into place. There I stood, in the grand ballroom of a modest hotel in suburban Chicago. My white satin gown hugging my frame like a promise of new beginnings. The chandelier lights danced off the crystal glasses, and the band played a soft melody as guests mingled, toasting to forever. My husband, Alex Rivera, squeezed my hand, his warm smile grounding me amid the whirlwind. But then, out of nowhere, my brother, Derek Voss, lurched forward from the crowd, his face twisted in a mask of rage I'd only glimpsed in shadows before. Without a word, he hurled his full glass of Merlot straight at me, the deep red liquid exploding across my chest like blood from a fresh wound. The stain spread, seeping into the fabric, turning purity into ruin. Gasps echoed through the room, forks clattering to plates. But Derek wasn't finished. He grabbed the edge of the cake table and flipped it with a savage grunt, sending tiers of vanilla frosting and fresh strawberries smashing to the floor in a sugary apocalypse. "This is for pretending you're too good for us," he snarled, his voice cutting through the music like a knife. I froze, the world narrowing to that crimson bloom on my dress, my heart pounding not just from shock, but from the dawning horror that this wasn't random. This was years of poison bubbling over. My parents, Elaine and Victor Voss, didn't rush to my side. No, they hurried to his, wrapping arms around Derek like he was the one bleeding out. "He's just blowing off steam," Mom whispered loudly enough for the nearest tables to hear, her hand patting his back as if soothing a child. Dad nodded, his voice gruff but defensive. "Rough day for him, Emily. Let it go." "Rough day?" My mind reeled. Alex stepped in front of me, his body a shield. But the betrayal hit harder than any splash. Whispers rippled through the guests, friends from my marketing firm, Alex's colleagues from the architecture office, even his parents looking on in stunned silence. I wanted to scream, to demand why. But I bit my tongue, the old habit of swallowing pain kicking in. Deep down, I knew this wasn't just a drunken fit. It was the eruption of a resentment I'd ignored for too long, fueled by my parents' blind favoritism. As the band faltered and the room hung in awkward limbo, I clenched my fists, feeling the weight of every dollar I'd funneled their way, every sacrifice I'd made in silence. Right there, amid the wreckage, a cold resolve settled in my chest. They had no idea what I'd do next, but it would change everything, and they wouldn't see it coming. Flashback to those early days in our cramped row house in a working-class neighborhood of Chicago, where the winters bit hard and the summers sweltered. My folks ran a little corner deli, slinging sandwiches and coffee to blue-collar folks. But it was always teetering on the edge. Bills stacked up like unpaid debts to fate itself. And by the time I was 14, I got it. Survival wasn't a given. Dad, Victor, with his calloused hands from years behind the counter, and Mom, Elaine, with her weary smile, poured their souls into that place. But it barely covered the rent. So I stepped up, landing a gig bussing tables at a diner down the block after school. I'd wipe down sticky booths, dodge grumpy regulars, and pocket tips that went straight to our electric bill or a bag of groceries. Weekends, I'd pedal my bike through rain-slicked streets delivering takeout orders, earning scraps that kept the lights on. It wasn't glamour, but it was necessity. And in the midst of it all, there was Derek, my little brother, 5 years younger, the apple of their eye. He'd score a goal in Pee Wee soccer, and they'd cheer like he'd won the World Cup, while my straight-A report cards got a pat on the back at best. I didn't resent it then. I figured that's how families worked. One picks up the slack so the other can shine. But as the years ticked by, the imbalance gnawed at me like a slow rot. At 16, I added a shift at a local bookstore, stacking shelves and ringing up customers to stash away for college dreams. Derek, meanwhile, got new cleats for his team or the latest video game console. No questions asked. I'd overhear Mom telling him, "Emily's handling things. Sweetie, don't you worry." It pricked. But I swallowed it, thinking my efforts were building us all up. By 17, I was juggling 3 gigs, waitressing, tutoring kids in math, and even mowing lawns in the summer heat. Scholarships were my lifeline. I applied to dozens, knowing the deli's thin margins couldn't touch tuition. Derek turned 12 that year, and when I caught him swiping 20s from my purse for arcade tokens, Dad just chuckled it off with a boys being boys. Huh. Mom shushed my protests, saying he was just a kid finding his way. That was the first fracture. The moment I felt the unfairness settle in my bones. Their praise for his every minor win, a B on a spelling test, while my debate trophies collected dust. It built quietly, like pressure in a fault line. I kept pouring in, sending home cash from my college dorm once I got that full ride to a state school, covering Derek's school trips or the deli's leaky roof repairs. He was old enough by then to flip burgers himself, but they never pushed. "He's not wired like you, Emily," Dad would say, as if my drive was a burden I'd volunteered for. Derek would flash that smug grin, decked out in gear I'd indirectly funded. And I'd wonder, why am I the only one bleeding for this family? That pattern, that quiet erosion of my spirit, laid the groundwork for the volcano that would erupt. The deli limped along, never booming. But somehow there was always cash for Derek's whims, new sneakers, a smartphone often traced back to my contributions. I thought I was the glue holding us together. But really, I was enabling a monster of dependency. His entitlement swelled, and with it, a jealousy I mistook for sibling ribbing. I didn't see the fuse burning until it was too late, until my own life dared to outshine the shadows they'd cast over me. After college, I landed a solid gig as a digital marketer at a bustling agency in downtown Chicago, pulling in $75,000 a year, worlds away from the deli's razor-thin profits. I'd scraped through school on that scholarship, burning midnight oil between classes and freelance gigs. The paycheck felt like freedom, but it quickly became their crutch too. Derek was in community college by then, dabbling in graphic design with no real fire. And I footed the bill, $8,000 a semester, plus $450 for his studio apartment downtown, and even chipped in $2,500 for a beat-up sedan to get him to classes. Every month, I'd wire extra to Mom and Dad for the deli's inventory or a broken fridge. They never nudged Derek to pitch in. "You're thriving, Emily, share the wealth," Mom would coo, as if my sweat equity was communal property. It was around then I met Alex at a networking event in the Loop. He was an architect, thoughtful and grounded, with a family that owned a modest construction firm in the suburbs. We clicked over shared laughs about bad blueprints and worse bosses, building something real amid the city's chaos. When I introduced him to my folks, I hoped for warmth. Instead, Dad grunted from his stool behind the counter. "He's a bit upscale for our crowd." Mom forced a grin but later pulled me aside. "Watch yourself, honey, he's from a different world." Their chill set my teeth on edge, but I shrugged it off. "Derek?" He sneered outright, rolling his eyes at mentions of Alex's projects. "Must be nice living that high life," he'd mutter from the couch in the apartment I subsidized. Yet he'd text for more cash, $40 for art supplies, $150 for new software. I caved, hoping maturity would catch up. But at family dinners, his barb sharpened. "Think you're hot stuff now, Huh. Mom and Dad? They'd pivot, gushing over Derek's latest doodle like it was Picasso, while my client wins got a cursory, good job. When Alex proposed 2 years later, on a quiet bench by Lake Michigan, his simple diamond ring gleaming under the streetlights, I was ecstatic. We envisioned a low-key wedding, saving for a future home. Sharing the news? Mom's sigh, sure he's the one? Worlds apart. Dad, don't rush into fancy stuff. Derek's text, marrying up. Sis? Hope you don't trip. It stung. But I pushed on. Still sending $500 that month for Derek's car repairs and the deli's utilities spike. The engagement dinner at the deli was the tipping point. I hoped for a cheer. A toast. Instead, Mom fretted, weddings cost a fortune, don't count on us. Dad, Derek's got bills piling up. Derek smirked, yeah. Keep it real. Don't make us look like chumps next to your architect boy. My chest constricted. Alex's hand under the table studying me. It crystallized then. They weren't just reliant, they resented my escape. Derek's jabs weren't envy, they were sabotage. And my parents enabling? Pure betrayal. I wasn't building a family, I was funding my own diminishment. The wedding planning turned into a gauntlet of greed and grudges. Alex and I aimed for intimate, 150 guests at a cozy venue in the suburbs. $18,000 budget from our combined savings. I naively thought family might contribute symbolically. Instead, Derek weaponized it. As best man. He skipped tux fittings. Texting, not my vibe. When I called, he barked, I'm not your puppet. All while I covered his $8,000 tuition installment. He toured the venue once and scoffed, this dump? You're slumming it to spite us. I explained the budget. But he fired back, your fancy hubby should upgrade. Then the demands, a $2,500 suit to match the photos, a $12,000 used truck for wedding transport. I refused, he whined to Mom and Dad. They echoed, make him feel included. Emily. Included? They hadn't offered a penny for flowers or favors, yet pushed me to bankroll his ego. It escalated at a deli meeting over sample menus. Derek sneered at the options. Cheap crap, embarrassing. Mom, something classier? Dad covered Derek's ride to keep peace. Peace? I snapped. I'm funding the whole damn thing, where's your share? Dad shrugged. Derek swamped. Derek grinned like a victor. Alex whispered later, they're draining you dry. He was right. Nights awake. Tallying the outflows, tuition, rent, repairs, I saw the truth. I'd been their ATM. Not their daughter. Derek's greed wasn't need, it was control. My parents' bias? Complicity. For the first time, I felt the stir of something dark, not just anger, but a vow to reclaim what was mine. The big day dawned crisp and clear. The venue blooming with white roses and soft lights. I glided down the aisle. Heart full. Alex's gaze pulling me forward. Vows exchanged. Rings slipped on, perfection. At the reception, we danced. His arms a safe harbor. Then Derek struck. Fueled by open bar. He staggered up. Eyes wild. The wine flew, staining my gown irrevocably. The table crashed. His roar, for thinking you're superior. Chaos reigned. But Mom and Dad? They cradled him. He's venting. Emily. Alex tensed. They're choosing him. Overheard whispers. We dipped into her savings for Derek's truck. My $9,000 honeymoon fund to Hawaii gone. I confronted. You stole from me? Mom paled. Derek needed wheels, you're loaded. Loaded? I'd bankrolled the $25,000 event solo. Guests murmured. Alex's folks aghast. I declared, you took my future for his whims. Mom hushed, no scenes. But I was the scene now. Alex led me out. Past the mess. My resolve hardening. Their theft. His violence. Their defense, it wasn't family, It was felony of the heart. I knew payback wasn't pretty, but silence had cost me enough. The next dawn, resolve like steel. I logged into my accounts. Alex by my side. I canceled transfers, $8,000 tuition, $450 rent, $2,500 truck loan. We scrapped Hawaii, opting for a quiet staycation. Derek's texts exploded, selfish bitch cutting me loose. Voicemail, you'll pay for ditching me. I ignored. His venom clarifying his parasitism. Mom called, you're killing Derek, reinstate it. I reminded, wedding ruin. Theft. She dismissed, family forgives. Dad, one slip, fix it. Slip? I'd carried them since teens. Derek escalated, regret this. Traitor. I saved evidence. Alex urging blocks. Guilt flickered, had I overreacted? But memories of their smirks doused it. A week later. Delhi showdown. Mom begged for rent aid. I refused, you chose him. Dad, loyalty's everything. I countered, mine's to myself now. Their tears fell. But so did my chains. Months later. The ambush at my office sealed it. Derek burst in, traitor, pay my dues. Mom, you owe him college. Dad, don't abandon blood. Colleagues gawked. Flashbacks surging. I stood, out, or security. They left. Curses trailing. I blocked all. Alex and I escaping to the Smokies for $2,500 reset. Promotion hit, lead marketer. $15,000 bump. Alex's parents embraced, our daughter now. Derek? Evicted. Back home. Expelled. Flipping burgers at $9 per hour. Mom and Dad's pleas faded to silence. Their deli faltering without my infusions. Guilt? Brief. But their cruelty extinguished it. I'd learned, blood doesn't bind if it bleeds you dry. Boundaries aren't betrayal, they're salvation. The price? Loneliness at times. But freedom's worth every scar. Choose yourself, the rest unravels as it should.